Yeah.
In general, John, I mean, first of all, great reporting on this, but what do you make of this exposure piece and what it means for these two schools in 2025?
Yeah, well, Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gold told me late in November that, I asked her about this 2025 and the 2026 media deal. And I said, what's important to you? And she said, it's exposure. It's not about who can pay the most money. This is about staying visible. This is about trying to find a true partner. And I think, I was a little surprised to see some of the national big players come in on this. ESPN coming in for a couple of games, CBS coming in for a couple of games, and the CW coming back for more after what was a pretty good year for them last year as they dipped their toe into the conference. But the exposure piece is there. For Oregon State, it's getting 2 games on ESPN. That is real ESPN. This is not ESPN News. This is not ESPN Deportes. This is not ESPNU. This is big ESPN plus CBS. It's real CBS. This is not CBS Sports Network. This is CBS along with a streaming element on Paramount. So really good exposure, particularly for Oregon State, who I think is going to have a pretty good season. And it kind of dovetails into next year in 2026 and what happens beyond, because these partners are very likely to be involved in the next deal, or at least have the option in the 2025 deal to kick the tires on 2026 and beyond. But the exposure piece that Teresa Gold wanted, the partnership, it's all there in this deal.
What's the timeline now on 2026 in terms of the media deal, its expansion efforts? When are we expecting to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, the 2025 piece took longer than expected, and there were even some holdups at the end. As they were trying to move a game. ESPN wanted the Oregon State Houston game on a Friday night, so it added like a week to the timeline, and it was really interesting to kind of get that insight into it. There are a lot more moving pieces for 26 and beyond. You've got a basketball piece involving Gonzaga and everybody else. You've got the new members coming in. The CW, I'm going to guess, is going to want a piece of the pie. Will they stay at 9 games? Will they try to expand their role? Will Turner or TNT come in to try to take some basketball? So there are a lot of moving pieces here. I'm told not to hold your breath here, that it's not going to be like the 26 piece is going to be announced in a week or two. It could be several weeks. It could be a month. I can't help but think that the mediation between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West is probably playing a role in that, and why these deals were not announced simultaneously. Because I think that, one, there's some optics there. If you're announcing a big deal and it's 26 and beyond while you're trying to mediate, that could you remove some leverage. I also think that, there's the expansion piece, and, there's the potential for UNLV or somebody else to be involved in that. And I think that piece still needs to be rectified and finalized. But, I'm sort of targeting, like, it could be several weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before we really start to see this deal come together. And look, I saw the 25 piece coming together maybe 2 weeks ago. So it gives you kind of some context for it, that, I knew that the CW was a partner. I knew they were taking 9 games. I didn't know who the other 2 partners were until the last 48 hours. So I think that gives you some context. But I think, if you're the future Pac-12 schools like San Diego State, you have to be pretty encouraged by the distribution, the exposure of the 25 deal. And certainly it looks like, the Pac-12's deal in 26 and beyond will be a lot bigger and a lot more valuable than the Mountain West deal.
Would you feel the same way? Jon Canzano, JonCanzano.com with us right now. John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Would you feel the same way about exposure moving forward when the Pac-12 takes on its new look with these schools that are coming in? Is exposure still trumping revenue, or how is that balance going to be defined?
Yeah, I mean, Teresa Gold will tell you they love revenue, right? They always want revenue. The schools need revenue to live. That's their lifeblood. But they don't want to disappear. And this next 5 years, guys, is about staying visible, staying relevant, positioning yourself for what's next. It's why the grant of rights is only a 5-year deal in the Pac-12. They know that there's another sort of inflection point that is coming in 2031, 2032, and the schools want to be prepared for it. So, I think, if you are a Pac-12 fan, you definitely need that exposure, because so much of what you want to do is to build your brand and, invest in your football program and invest in your basketball program and position yourself for whatever comes next. So I do think that exposure piece is big. I also talked with Gonzaga's AD, Chris Standiford, few weeks ago in Spokane. And, he told me, he said that they're looking for a real partner. And it isn't about who can pay the most money. It's about somebody who really wants to buy into what the Pac-12 is doing. Now, the CW is doing that clearly in football, but is there a basketball partner like TNT or Turner, lost the NBA, that could come in and be that basketball, machine on the media side? I kind of think that's where it may be headed. But, if I'm UNLV and I'm looking at this, I'm now seeing ESPN, CBS, big exposure, the potential for a lot more money. I'm certainly interested to see what happens with the mediation with the Mountain West and Pac-12, because it looks like, they need one more school. That if I'm another school on the outside looking in, I find this pretty attractive.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And you've been asked so much about expansion, and we can get to that piece beyond UNLV as well. But what do you see as most likely? One additional school, which gets the Pac-12 to 8 football playing members, which is still only 7 conference games, which may create some challenges? Or do you think it's more likely they actually expand beyond just 1 full-time member?
Right now, I am thinking 1. I am thinking that there isn't a no-brainer out there. So if there's not one school, like the media companies and the consultants and the sources that I talk with tell me that, hey, all of these pieces are interchangeable. These 6 or 8 schools that we've all been talking about, there isn't one that just jumps out at you and says, that's the no-brainer. Because of that, I'm thinking that, the Pac-12's move here is to just take one, because why would you take a stable of teams if there isn't, somebody in that stable that you really love? And so it may come down to the bottom line, who is willing to take a minimal distribution. School like Texas State comes to mind there. It may come down to geography and travel expense. The bottom line there would certainly favor UNLV if you just look at it on a map. It could come down to brand, like who brings the biggest brand, who's willing to invest in a school like Memphis would jump out. I think those 3 are at the top of the list for different reasons. But I would, right now, I would say, gun to my head, they're taking one school. They'll go to 8 football playing members, and then they'll have to decide, are they going to do some kind of scheduling partnership with another conference where they cross over and play a game? Are they going to play a home and home like Washington State and Oregon State are doing this year? It's not unprecedented. It's unusual, but it increases your inventory. I think some of this depends on the appetite from the TV partners. Like, what are they interested in doing and what do they want? Because as we've found in expansion, they're driving the bus.
No doubt about it. Jon Canzano with us right now. Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Just a couple of more, Jon, before you go. If UNLV was not part of the deal, would the Pac-12 still hold its championships, in your estimation, in Las Vegas, men's basketball and football potentially?
Yeah, I think they'd like to be in Vegas. And I think whether they have UNLV or not, you're seeing, like the Big Ten is holding their media day in Vegas, and the Big 12 has talked about playing basketball games or football games in Vegas. And I think everybody likes to be in Las Vegas. It's a great place for fans to go. So I still think the Pac-12 would be interested in being there and having some kind of presence in that market. I also think that, UNLV, just from a geography standpoint, makes sense. The Washington State new president came out and said, the expansion piece, it would be west of the Mississippi. This is challenging my geography. I got my map out really quick, and I'm like, all right, where's Memphis? Where's Tulane? Just so happens they're right on the Mississippi. So it didn't really help us figure that out. But I don't think anybody's interested in sending their Olympic sports athletes, too far away from home. And so, but the numbers have to make sense. And UNLV has been offered a bunch of promises by the Mountain West. Is that money there still? Can Gloria Nevarez, the Mountain West commissioner, land that plane, so to speak? I was given a quote. Somebody said, if she can't land the plane, all bets are off, and you would expect to see Air Force and UNLV run for other conferences. So keep an eye on the mediation with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. I think that may be one of the triggers for expansion, whether the Pac-12 is moving on or whether the Pac-12 is going to try to take UNLV. And then beyond that, it's the announcement of the 26 deal. And it looks to me right now, guys, that the Pac-12 feels pretty good about the exposure piece and is really encouraged about what they're seeing in the market.
What about St. Mary's? Where does St. Mary's land in this whole equation? Obviously, it's a bit of an afterthought compared to probably adding that football member, but could they still be part of the basketball footprint moving forward?
Yeah, St. Mary's is still in play, but I am told by sources on that campus that they haven't had substantial talks with the Pac-12 about joining. They're just being told, like everybody else, hey, we need to finish the football piece first, then we'll pivot to basketball. It doesn't tell me that they're off the table, doesn't mean they're on the table, but certainly their basketball brand makes them intriguing, as a basketball edition, or maybe, everything but football edition, because they don't play it. It could just be that St. Mary's ends up playing some games against the Pac-12 schools because, they need strength of schedule. They like to continue to play Gonzaga and some other schools. So I'm not ruling St. Mary's out, but I think that's a piece that comes maybe a week or two after this football thing gets settled.
And I do wonder too, just to kind of off the cuff thinking out loud, I wonder if Sac State could be part of some type of scheduling agreement, even if not officially a member of the Pac-12, but if they do make the move to FBS, I wonder what role they could play helping out the Pac-12 from a scheduling perspective.
Yeah, they're going to need games. And Dave Brown is the scheduling guru at College Gridiron. I had fascinating talk with him in the last couple of years as he has tried to piece together schedules. He's the one that told me that, hey, this home and home thing that Washington State and Oregon State are doing, it's not unprecedented. Liberty did it. New Mexico did it. UConn did it back in the day. And so if you get in a challenging situation, there's always games to be found. Now, it could just be that Sac State needs games and they're available late in the year where you could plug and play them at different times against different Pac-12 schools. So certainly they could fill a date on the football calendar, but I don't think that Sacramento State is a candidate at all to be an expansion member of the Pac-12. They're nowhere near ready. They're not being considered. They haven't had any discussions on that front. So if they did end up involved, I think it would only be from a football scheduling standpoint, as maybe filling in for games here or there. Because if you're only 8 members, you're going to need that extra non-conference game. You're going to have to pick that up somewhere. So either it's a scheduling alliance or it's something very creative.
Jon, absolutely terrific reporting. You've been all over this 2025 media deal and beyond. For our listeners here in San Diego, where can they get more of your work?
You can always find me at joncanzano.com. Get a free subscription, get a paid subscription. What works for you works for me. That's what I say. But appreciate you guys. Love the work you do. And looking forward to, I'm taking my tour to sunny San Diego. I'm doing this New World Pac-12 tour, so I can't wait to get down there. So I'm looking for some recommendations on where I should eat, where I should stay, what I should see when I'm there.
We'll have it for you, and hopefully it's like today where it's 72 and sunny. One of those Chamber of Commerce days once again in San Diego. Appreciate it, Jon.
Thanks.